Hey you! Thanks for stopping by! I'm so excited to be doing another manga review video. This one isn't going to be about a disturbing story. Well, kinda, but not in the young girl gets tortured and assaulted kind of story. More like a fun body horror / supernatural story. Last year I reviewed Remina, and this year it's time to do more Junji Ito stories. I thought about covering Uzumaki since the anime is out, but I wanted to keep this video short. It's a big story and unfortunately, I don't have the time to make an in-depth review. Plus, I want to review the anime to compare to the manga, but not all the episodes are out at the moment. Maybe next year. I thought it would be fun to review 5 Junji Ito short stories. I have read a few short stories, but I did look up a few to read for this video. In my research, I underestimated how much Junji Ito manga there is. He's made dozens of stories. There was so much to choose from. Without further ado, let's get to it. Our first story is The Enigma at Amigara Fault. I believe this is one of Junji Ito's most well-known stories. It begins with a young man named Owaki climbing the Amigara Mountains. Something strange has happened in the area after an earthquake, so he wants to check it out. On his walk, he meets a young woman named Yoshida, who is trying to find the fault after seeing it on TV. Eventually, they reach the fault to find dozens of human-shaped holes, along with a crowd of spectators. A research team is trying to figure out how they were created and where they go. Yoshida says she came here to find a hole in her shape after seeing it on TV. They are approached by a guy named Nakagaki, who tells the pair that he and many others also came to find their human-shaped holes, and he already found his. He strips down to his underwear, enters the hole, and disappears. Take a shot every time I say hole in this video. A rescue squad is sent to save Nakagaki, but they are unable to get deep enough into the tunnel. That night, Owaki has a nightmare about Nakagaki and wakes up scared. I want to take a moment to praise Junji Ito's artwork. Aside from the body horror, he is also known for his very detailed art style. When I'm reading his manga, I sometimes pause to admire the incredible detail he puts into just a single panel. It reminds me of Kentaro Miura. Those two are in a league of their own. Outside, he sees Yoshida, who shows him that she found what she was looking for. She wants to go inside, but is terrified of possibly being trapped. There's so many possibilities of what could be on the other side. Maybe they could get isekai'd and be the hero of their own story, or possibly die a horrible death. Then we see a guy in his underwear trying to climb into a hole. He says, "This is my hole. It was made for me." Okay, out of context, it sounds funny and wrong. I can see why this has been memed. He climbs in and disappears, which scares Yoshida as she fears she too will not be able to resist the urge. Owaki tries to help by blocking the entrance with rocks. Back at his tent, Yoshida says she's afraid to be alone and no one cares about her. Not her friends, not her family. Owaki says that he will be there for her, and they lean in close for a kiss. I think they did more than just kiss, if you get what I'm saying. That night, he has another nightmare about getting into the hole and his body twisting and stretching. Classic Junji Ito with the body horror. He awakens to find Yoshida gone. He searches for her but finds the rocks have been removed. He calls out to her but no answer. He's all alone in the dark. Owaki drops his flashlight, which shines a light on a human-shaped hole that looks like him. Just like Yoshida and Nakagaki, Owaki is tempted to go inside. It's like he's under a spell. Up until that point, he was the reasonable one, until he found his human-shaped hole. Like the others, he disappears into the hole. Months later, a group of researchers are traveling the Amigara Mountains when they come across large cracks in the mountains. One of them looks into the cracks to see a twisted human coming their way. I know it's supposed to be scary, but I think it looks like one of those inflatable tube men. Upon my first reading, yeah, it was shocking and scary to imagine it happening to me. I wonder what this could be a metaphor for. It's not just a scary story about turning into a noodle, it's saying something about society. Perhaps a curiosity killed the cat type of story. Don't let curiosity get the better of you. That's how I ended up reading disturbing manga. Maybe this could be a metaphor for addiction, about how one decision can change your life. Or how loneliness and isolation can drive people to do the unthinkable, like taking their own lives. I keep thinking back to the part where Yoshida said no one cares about her. She wants to find a greater purpose, a place to belong, and fill that feeling of emptiness. There are videos on YouTube that can explain this better than me. On the website where I read this, there was a comment that said, quote, "The first time I read this, I thought the main character was an androgynous lesbian, and I was so disappointed when I learned otherwise," unquote. That didn't happen with me. Awaki does look androgynous though. Our second story is The Sad Tale of the Principal Post. This is the shortest one, being only 4 pages, yet still shocking. It starts with a family eating and talking at the dinner table. A boy asks where their father is, followed by someone yelling for help. It's their father. The whole family follows his cries for help down to the crawl space. To their horror, they find him being crushed under a post. The wife asks how this happened, but the father says it's a long story. Before anyone can get help, the father explains that this is the principal post, meaning if they move it, the house will collapse, so they just have to leave it. The family is against the idea, but he says he wants to die supporting the house, and he does. The last panel shows his skeletal remains still supporting the house. He took supporting his family too literally. Okay, even though I read this months ago, I'm still confused as to how he got crushed by the post. Did it fall on him? Did he try to crawl under the post but got stuck? Or maybe a wizard did it. Our next story is The Hanging Balloons. It begins with a girl named Kazuko hiding in her room. There's a voice outside telling Kazuko to open the window. She hasn't left her house in a week, and there's no food left. We flash back to a month ago when her childhood friend Terumi was found hanging from an electrical wire. Kazuko attends the funeral along with dozens of mourning fans. Kazuko was an idol and a model. As Kazuko and her friends walk home, they see a boy in front of them named Shiroishi, who is surrounded by a group of boys. They blame Shiroishi for Terumi's death, saying they heard rumors the two dated and he never supported her. Before things get physical, Kazuko steps in and threatens to yell for help. Sometime later, Terumi's death has inspired copycats, as well as rumors of her ghost appearing in the sky. Photos surface of a giant Terumi head in the sky. At school, Kazuko tries to console Shiroishi. He says he sees the head in his backyard at night, calling to him. She doesn't believe him, so at night he calls her house and tells her to come over. Kazuko sees the Terumi head herself. Shiroishi climbs a tree to get close to it, asking for forgiveness. He doesn't see a noose coming closer and closer, and is hanged. It's revealed he is being hanged from a giant balloon head that looks like him. Kazuko can only watch in horror. The Shiroishi head and the Terumi head begin to kiss. Kazuko runs to get help, but when she returns with an officer, they're gone. The next day, while walking home with her friends, they don't believe her. They stop when they see balloons in the sky that look like them with nooses coming closer and closer. Two girls get hanged by their balloons. Kazuko and another girl manage to escape in an alley and cry for help. A neighbor hears and tries to help by firing a crossbow into one of the balloons. The girls are relieved, but it's short-lived when the other girl's head deflates like the balloon. Once again, I have to praise the art style of Junji Ito. Once again, Junji Ito does a great job with the art style. Kazuko manages to get home. On the TV, there are reports of hanging balloons all over Japan. Everyone is warned to stay inside. No one knows how to defeat the balloons, since destroying them will kill the owner. It's then that Kazuko also realizes that Terumi didn't take her own life. Kazuko's father still chooses to leave for work, only to get hanged by his balloon. Her brother Yosuke makes a brave attempt to leave to get food, but he never returns. Kazuko's mother goes to look for him, but she too gets hanged. Kazuko is all alone. That leads us back to the beginning of the story with Kazuko alone in her room. She hears her brother calling and opens the window in excitement to see him hanging from his balloon. Kazuko's balloon is floating above and says thanks for letting her in. Wait, she's not supposed to die? She's the final girl. You don't kill the final girl. In any other story, Kazuko would have found a way to defeat her balloon without dying. We would know where they came from and save Japan. But this is Junji Ito. Most of the time, there are no happy endings. If you want to know what happens next, then lucky for you, we have Return of the Hanging Balloons. It begins by saying the hanging balloons left, even those who didn't hang their owner. All is peaceful in Japan for a while. Sometime later, they return. Someone shoots down a balloon with a person. The balloon and the person's face deflate. A man studies the balloons and finds they are made of nylon. A woman says they did an autopsy and found the human faces turned into nylon. Later, the man and woman are walking down the street. They wonder what is the connection between the humans and the balloons. The woman says her face feels like nylon, scaring them both. The woman says her face feels like nylon, scaring them. As they stare at each other in horror, we see many hanging balloons in the distance, including two who resemble them. I wish this was longer and we got to know these characters more. It's so short. Like, I know I know it's supposed to be a short story and Junji Ito does short stories all the time, but this one was too short. I need more answers. Junji Ito, I need an explanation. Junji Ito, I need a longer version of this. I wouldn't want to live in any Junji Ito story. I would not survive, even as the main character. He's not afraid to kill off his main characters. Our last story is Snow White. This is Junji Ito's retelling of the famous fairy tale. He does a few retellings. Just like the original story, the queen gets a magic mirror that talks, and it tells her that she is the fairest of them all. Every day the mirror praises the queen, until one day it says she is the second fairest after her foster daughter Snow White. This is Snow White. She looks like every Junji Ito female lead. She is praised for her fair skin, and Snow White says it's because of a skincare product she's taking. The queen says, "Snow White? More like bleached white." Damn. I just love that line. Then her godfather enters, who I assume is the queen's husband, and begins to hit on her, causing the queen to storm in and confront him. She locks Snow White and has her murdered, getting rid of her only competition. The queen thinks that now she is back to being the fairest of them all, but the magic mirror continues to call Snow White the world's finest beauty. The godfather comes in and says something is in the dungeon. When they go down to check, they see a resurrected Snow White surrounded by glowing orbs. The godfather explains that the glowing orbs are the souls of the 7 gnomes who used to live underground. I forgot there were dwarves in the original fairy tale. The queen orders them to kill her again, only for Snow White to rise again. Since she couldn't kill the young girl, maybe she can kill her looks. The queen slashes Snow White's face and laughs. "Not so pretty anymore, are you?" The mirror still compliments Snow White, and how the blood matches her cherry red lips. The queen can't take it. She has to be the fairest. In one last attempt to kill Snow White for good, she has her set on fire. The poor girl is in pain as the queen laughs. The souls of the 7 gnomes take revenge by setting the queen on fire. She becomes a charred skeleton next to Snow White, who still remained beautiful. And that's all the stories. I enjoyed each story for different reasons. Some had creative spooky designs, some left me with questions, and some left me sad. If I had to rank all the stories, first would be the Enigma at Amigara Fault, second would be the Hanging Balloons, third would be Snow White, fourth would be the Sad Tale of the Principal Post, and fifth would be the Return of the Hanging Balloons. Aside from Junji Ito's amazing art style to enhance the horror, what's also scary is the lack of answers. We don't find out who created the human-shaped holes Or why it turns people into noodles? How did the father get crushed under the post? Where did the hanging balloons come from? How do you defeat it? We don't get answers, and that's fine. That's part of the horror. That's left to our imagination. Which short story was your favorite? If you like this video, consider subscribing, liking, and sharing. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. Thanks for stopping by.